Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Well, whatever time you're watching this, I hope that you are ready with your Bible, whether that's digital or physical, to go through Joshua chapter 22 as we near the end of the book of Joshua, which has been a fantastic book to go through. It's an amazing book on leadership. Today we're in chapter 22. I'm going to read a little bit of it and then I'll narrate the rest of it. So let's go. Joshua chapter 22. Welcome. Verse 1. Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, "You have done all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded, and you have obeyed me in everything I commanded. For a long time now, to this very day, you have not deserted your fellow Israelites, but have carried out the mission of the Lord, the mission the Lord your God gave you. Now that the Lord your God has given them rest as he promised, return to your homes in the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. But be very careful to keep the commandment and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you. And this is the commandment: to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, to keep his commands, to hold fast to him, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul." Then Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their homes. Let me explain a little bit of what is happening here. These tribes, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribes of Manasseh, were actually the first to be allocated land after they crossed the Jordan. And it's very interesting because for them, they were not even allocated land by Joshua. It was it was so early up after they crossed the Jordan, and Moses had said that that's the land that they were to take. But the thing I find interesting is that they didn't settle. They spoke to Joshua and they said, "You guy, as we are going to follow you until we fight all the nations for the rest, for the sake of the rest of the other tribes." And I find it interesting because the same thread we saw about Moses is the one that we are seeing here. These guys should have, they had the option of saying, see us now, we have our land, you guys go and fight your own battles. But they decided to accompany Moses, they decided to accompany Joshua, and the rest of the tribes, and they fought until everybody settled, and now Joshua is dismissing them and telling them to go back to their homes. You see, there's this thread that started with Caleb, finishes fighting, then now after many years comes to Joshua to say, "Show me my land," and then Joshua finishes fighting, and then the elders come to him and they're like, "My guy, even you are meant to get some land, go take." And then these Reubenites, Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh. And one of the things I'm seeing here is that people behave the same way their leaders behave. And because there was selflessness in Caleb and selflessness in Joshua, it's now possible to see there's this level of selflessness, this level of three whole tribes saying, until everybody settles, then we will go back home. And these guys didn't even come to ask for land. They were called by Joshua, and he's the one who told them, "Now you guys can go back and settle in your own lands." Very interesting. And it's a lesson for us. Like, I feel like for the last three or so there have been 3 or so chapters where we've seen this kind of selflessness, and this must speak to us because we are at the risk of being a very self-centered generation. We think about ourselves. We never lend ourselves to other people, but we are seeing an example that is different here, whether that's in a very personal and individual way or in a collective way, or if maybe you work somewhere and you have this position, it allows you to see, listen, don't just live life for yourself. Live life in a way where you think, who else, if I did this way, of what impact can it be to other people? And I like it that these guys settled all the tribes before they thought about themselves. This chapter continues, and I like the charge that Joshua gives them, that they walk in obedience, they hold fast to God, and then that they serve him with everything that they have. I like it because that's a very powerful charge that he gives them there. Loving God starts with being obedient. You can't just love God without obedience. Obedience is the test that you actually love God. And then it goes on to, you don't just obey, but you hold unswervingly to God. The Message version says, embracing God unswervingly. This, for you and I, it speaks about a closeness. Obedience can be, you can obey God from a distance, but it's of benefit to come close to him. And then lastly, he tells them that they are to serve him with everything that they are and everything that they have, with their heart, with their souls. Serving God is an external demonstration of our deep internal commitment and conviction. It's when you serve God that we can see, and yeah, this guy is committed. And there's those three levels. There's you love God, but you love him by obeying him. That's number one. And then when you obey, you don't obey from a distance. You seek intimacy with him. And then when you found that intimacy with God, you don't just stay there. You continue getting closer to God. And how do you do that? By serving him. Serving is the external demonstration of a deep internal commitment and conviction. That's Joshua chapter 22 verse 1 all the way to verse 6, and those are the things that we get there. It continues to speak into a level of selflessness that we must have. And then number 2, it has this charge that Joshua made to the tribes that were returning home, and he was asking them to love God. And we're seeing that you can love God, but loving God is that thing that is full of actions, and we've seen the 3 actions there. It's obedience, number 1. You cannot love somebody. You cannot. Obedience is the demonstration of love. It's not lip service. And then after you've obeyed, obey not just from a distance. Come close to God. And when you've come close to God and you've embraced that intimacy, the 3rd step is a step called serving, where you serve God as an external demonstration of your deep internal conviction and commitment. This is Joshua chapter 22. There's a lot more in that chapter, but I choose to leave us with this today. And I hope that it informs your kind of leadership, it informs how you're living, and it informs your love for God and in the way that you do things for God and in his name. Have a great day. God bless you. Bye.